folks, George here. Today we're going to continue our discussion of care ethics by analyzing and discussing an article by Nel Noddings entitled Caring, a Feminine Approach to Ethics and Moral Education. I like this article in addition to the Bear article because it helps really flesh out and really build upon and expand upon some of the ideas that we saw in the Bear article. Noddings starts by recalling David Hume and saying that morality requires emotions. Morality requires emotions. Otherwise, where do we start from? Reason alone can't give us morality, according to Hume, and Noddings is expanding upon that idea. Ethical and natural caring is where she starts, right? What is this natural sort of caring that she wants to talk about? Well, she starts with a mother's love for her child, right? For better or for worse, a mother's love for her child is considered natural caring. And because, so the theory goes, so the hypothesis is, because ethics has been dominated by male philosophers, that loving that a mother has for her child is considered something like natural, not moral or not ethical. Yeah? She's going to try to say this is hogwash. This is all part of a proper morality, proper ethical considerations. Yes? After all, again, there is no grounding. Echoing Hume's earlier ideas, there is no grounding for ethics based on reason alone. This is kind of building upon the notion of the naturalistic fallacy. The naturalistic fallacy suggests that any starting point about the facts of nature do not yield any moral conclusions. You can't go from it is this way to therefore it ought to be some way. There is no ought from is. You can't derive an ought, a moral claim. You can't derive a moral claim from a factual claim. And therefore, there is no real justification for morality other than the emotions, according to Noddings and according to Hume much earlier. So then, what is this natural caring that Noddings wants to talk about? What is this natural caring and love that she wants to examine? Well, an I must is what mothers say. Yes, I must care for my child, even when sometimes you don't want to. I must clean up after my child, right? I must do all these things. I must pick up my child from sports practice or things like this. Even when it is inconvenient, there is still this must that is naturally inside of mothers, right? Inside of mothers. They must care for their child. Thus, ethical caring is dependent upon this natural caring inclination that is within especially mothers. Contrast that with Kant, who suggests that duty is what should base all of our actions, not love, Kant would say. Not our emotions, but rather reason, and from reason, duty. Noddings is saying hogwash. It's our natural inclinations, our natural emotions from which moral caring and moral thinking and moral considerations really emanate from. She also wants to contrast that with a holy monk at the top of a mountain praying to his God. She's saying, yes, that monk, that ascetic, he is devoted to praying. He is devoted to something. But it's not caring. It's not caring. That's not what Noddings is after here. Repeating myself now, if there is this naturalistic fallacy that we can never derive an ought from an is, we can never derive an ought. We can never derive moral claims, from mere facts about things, the way things are, then if that doesn't compel or justify morality, then what does? Noddings is going to say our emotions and our natural caring inclinations. And what is that? She explains it in an interesting way. She says caring, that natural tendency towards caring, is a recognition of our completion in the person we're caring for. A mother recognizes that that a significant part of her personhood, of her existence, is as a mother to this other person, caring for this other person. You can see right away that this is an anti-individualistic philosophy. She's not concerned with the individual here. We can't be. We aren't individuals. I only am who I am in relation to others. I only am here because of my mother who cared for me. But what makes me a complete person is also when I find and I offer my caring towards another. And I devote myself to another. That is, when I complete myself via another. What this really fleshes out is this notion of relatedness. Yes, we all have a natural desire to remain related to each other, to be in communities with each other, like-minded communities. We all desire to be loved by others, and we desire to love others, right? Now, what is that exactly? That's a different discussion. But don't we all have that natural inclination to be with others and to be of others, to be for others? Here's a problem for traditional morality, whether we're talking about Kant's deontological ethics or Mill's utilitarian ethics. I'm not related to everybody. So what does that mean? I can't universalize my caring ethics. Ethics can't be universal. Why not? Because I'm not universally related to other people. That's a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? Another hard pill to swallow would be this claim that there is no equality. There is no equality. Why not? Why? I don't treat the stranger equal to a loved one. My mother didn't care for me equally as she cared for another youth who lived down the street from me. We don't have equal relations with everybody. So let's get rid of this silly notion of equality that's put forth by, let's say, utilitarian ethics and deontological Kantian ethics. Furthermore, traditional ethics always has certain caveats, doesn't it? It always suggests, other things being equal, this is what you should do. Here's the problem. Other things are never equal. Therefore, all those principles, all those maxims, all those universalized claims are hogwash. They don't say anything true about the ethical nature and the ethical human experience, the moral human experience. The only universal that there is the maintenance of the caring relationship. We all wish to maintain those caring, loving relationships. That being a universal, by the way, that means this is not a relativist philosophy. This is not a relativist philosophy because there is that universal recognition of human nature. This universal recognition that we all wish to be in loving, caring relationships. That said, and here's another hard pill to swallow that the care ethicists pose, especially Nel Noddings. This limits our obligations to the remote. we are not as obligated to the remote. She says this exactly. We are not obliged to care for the starving child in Africa. This is a direct response to a utilitarian like Peter Singer, who says we are all obligated, as a good utilitarian, to treat everybody equally, and I shall devote myself to the starving child on the other side of the world as much as I'm devoted to my neighbor or my loved one. Noddings is saying, no way. You don't have that obligation to the remote. It's unrealistic. It's unrealizable. So then what are we related to? What is relation? What is the nature of a relationship? Well, relatedness has two criteria according to Noddings. Number one, the relationship must be present. The relationship must be near. The relationship must be immediate. Right? Somebody in your direct circle of connectedness. Again, echoing the earlier claim that takes me away from my obligation, from any obligation to somebody on the other side of the world. Furthermore, the second criterion for relations and relatedness is the potential for growth in the relationship. The potential for growth. Obviously, when I send money to the other side of the world, there's no potential for growth in that relationship. Right? There is no potential for growth in that relationship. She says something else that might bother us as well. She says this is why animals, we can't have relations with animals. For you animal lovers out there, yeah, you can take it up with Noddings, right? But we can't have reasonable relationships with animals. But we can have relationships with infants, right? Because that infancy, that infant we're caring for, will grow into a more loving relationship, won't it? But animals, I guess, according to Noddings, don't have the capacity for a growing relationship. I guess she's not an animal lover. Those of you who are animal lovers and pet lovers, please leave a comment. Can you have a relationship with pets, a growing relationship, a relationship that grows and nurtures, perhaps? Again, by the way, this does contrast with Peter Singer's flavor of utilitarianism, who's gotten himself in trouble as well for saying things like, well, wait a second, we should consider animals on equal pairing with humans. Here's an interesting side view that I want to go to, though. I understand what she's trying to say, but consider when I was a kid, I've got an anecdote. When I was a kid, way back in the 1900s, there was a concert to raise money for the poor and starving people on the other side of the world. And Madonna comes out. Yeah? Madonna comes out and she does this, a pop concert, yeah? Madonna comes out, she holds up a picture of a starving girl in Africa. She says, by the way, please donate because this is a picture of this starving girl in Africa. And presumably that inspired people to donate. What might Noddings respond to that? Well, number one, I think that Madonna actually is feeding into Noddings' idea here. By holding up a picture of a young girl. Isn't that exactly what she's doing? Is trying to say you are related to this person. You do know this person. You are immediately connected to this person. Here's her photograph. By the way, Madonna does her one more, even. And several years later, she finds the girl whom she had a photograph of several years earlier. And she brings the young lady up on stage with her some 10, 20 years later. Isn't that exactly what Noddings is kind of saying, actually? Right? So, is this really disagreeing with Noddings' idea? To some degree, yes, but I think actually, no. I think Madonna is building on Noddings' idea that in order to feel connected with people on the other side of the world, starving children on the other side of the world, form a relationship with them. And didn't Madonna really bring that idea to the fore by saying, here's a photograph, by the way, Let me show you here, and walk up on stage with her. She is saying that we have an immediate relationship with this girl. Look, I have her photograph. Number two, there is potential for growth. Here she is as a young lady. Right? Isn't that exactly what Noddings is saying? So counter to Noddings' conclusion, let's say, that we can't have relations with people on the other side of the world, isn't Madonna actually saying, well, wait a second, I think we can. And I'm going to follow your directions. I'm going to show that we have an immediate relatedness to this person, and I'm going to show how you can have potential for growth with this person. I think that's the caring that actually would impress Noddings. That's how to create a caring relationship. If you want a caring relationship, yeah, you might have to go to Africa and meet people there. And might that stimulate some of your, and stir some of your emotions a great deal more. Sorry for that divergence, but I do think that it was important to really bring home Noddings' point here. What is the point of all this then? Yeah, Noddings says she's not interested in judging, but rather she's interested in heightening moral sensitivity. Maybe we should all be a little bit more motherly in our daily activities and in our relationships with others, especially when we can be caring to others. Not just talk about right, wrong, good, bad, but rather talk about caring and need for care, need for sensitivity, need for that emotional relationship that so many philosophers, so many male philosophers have put to the side. What's one implication here? She says, right, punishment, for example. She's not against punishment. She doesn't want to say, let's abolish punishment, let's abolish prisons. But she would say this, let's try to understand and care for the convicted criminal a bit better. Instead of simply punishing the criminal, try to understand the criminal. Why did they do this? We'll still punish, but in a more supportive manner, in a more corrective manner, in a more caring manner. Doesn't that make sense, by the way? Doesn't that make sense? For many of us, we would suggest that, the punishment system is a little bit too concerned with punishment rather than, hey, let's support and care for and correct the person. Isn't that what we want to do? Improve society a little bit better? I think so. What does that suggest, though? Because this does lead to another sort of fear as I am reading her article here. When she says that we need this immediate connection in order to form caring and ethical relationships with others, doesn't this entail some sort of, provincialism, right? Or this ultra-localism, right? I only care for my people and not necessarily other people. Well, she responds to this, I think. She predicts this worry that I have. She suggests we need to meet one another as one caring. Know when you meet somebody, when you engage with somebody, that person is a person that is a caring person that needs care. Know that person might care for you. Know that you might care for that person. Right? So as a caring individual, recognize in that person that person has experienced care. That person was raised in a caring environment and wants to care for others and does care for others. And shouldn't we understand each other? Might that open a different understanding? Noddings certainly thinks so. Tend to agree with her, I think. Now, I've talked a lot about emotions and caring and what's natural, these natural inclinations. By the way, Kant would have a field day with Noddings and completely disagree with her almost every step of the way. What would Kant probably respond to her? You're not talking about ethics, I think Kant would say. What you're talking about is not morality. And by the way, I think Singer, utilitarian, whom I've referenced a couple of times here, would say something similar. has said similar sorts of things, not necessarily to Noddings, but people who disagree with him. Well, you're not talking about ethics and morality then. I think Noddings would say, fine. So what? Then fine, don't call it ethics. Call it schmethics. Call it whatever the hell you want. But isn't this an important part of a good life? This is caring. This is an essential part of living a good life and being good to others. If you don't want to call it ethics, fine. Call it whatever you want. I think Noddings has no problem with dismissing such claims. That's the point, though, is that care ethicists are adding something to the discussion that wasn't there before. This caring, emotion-filled, empathetic, relationship-centered, non-individualistic sort of ethics. And women are a part of this. Is it a surprise that women, once women start talking about ethics, that it's women who start talking like this? By the way, aren't women part of our society? Maybe we should open our ears and see what they have to contribute to this discussion about living a good life, about living a moral life, about being good to others. By the way, I think Noddings would acknowledge, and does acknowledge, she's not speaking for all women here. Furthermore, she's not trying to exclude men from the discussion. She's not trying to exclude men. She's saying, don't men, by the way, don't you want to be more caring? Don't you want to be fathers in your child's life? Not so many years ago, fathers were discouraged from being loving kinds of fathers. And today, I think there are still communities around town that don't like that so much. I'm supposed to be a good, stern father. But I think that some fathers, some men, are learning from this side of ethics. That they want to be caring fathers. They want to be nurturing fathers. By the way, aren't there some men, for example, who want to get into the nurturing and caring professions? Like teaching children. Like working with children. Like caring for others. Like being nurses. Isn't that what this is all about? Yes, by the way, there's plenty of feminist discussions about women becoming like men. Such as, I love a Hollywood version of feminism, where women become the superheroes, right? I'm thinking of Wonder Woman movies. I'm thinking of Miss Marvel movies. I'm thinking about all those movies where women are stepping into masculine roles. God bless them. There is a place for that, by the way. But isn't there also a place for men also becoming more caring in our society? And maybe men taking on what traditionally were called feminine roles. Like I said, being nurses, being caregivers, caring for others, playing a bigger role, not just in their children's lives, but what about their own parents' lives as they become elderly? Might men want to consider a more caring ethic? Like Annette Baer said last time, there's room in ethics for more than just justice. How about we also include in our notions of justice a notion of caring? Wouldn't that make all of us, men included, better and more fulfilled and enjoy a more moral, ethical, good life? I agree. See you next time. Bye-bye.